Fellow Toastmasters and guests, I've mentioned a few times how I began in Toastmasters. Basically, my boss told me that I was so bad at public speaking, and I made her so uncomfortable that I had to either improve by going to something like Toastmasters, or she wasn't going to let me do any more speeches. I almost took her up on the second part of that. It's pretty good, but I know you can't get anywhere if you can't speak in public. So I decided I was going to come and try Toastmasters. The closest club to my house was about 2 blocks away, and it was Club Awesome, but it met at 7 o'clock in the mornings. It was only 2 blocks away because it used to be at Morrison's cafeteria. I think Bruce probably is the only one here who probably remembers that. But it was so close that I really couldn't use the excuse that it would take too long to get there. I really had no excuse. I could almost walk there if I wanted. And I'd like to say that as soon as I got into Toastmasters, things worked out really well. I was great. But unfortunately, that's not anywhere near the truth. I was horrible. I remember coming to my first meeting, and when I was like panicked when I saw that we had to introduce ourselves. I hated doing that in meetings, any meeting. And it struck me that I actually had to say my name, and I had trouble with that. It seemed that even at subsequent meetings I had a little bit of trouble with that. Francie Garrett, a past president, used to always say she used to prepare to be able to come to the club and say her name because she was afraid she'd forget. She even wrote it down. I didn't go that far, but I had to prepare every meeting I came to do the self-introduction. I prepared more for those self-introductions than I probably did for this speech. And I was horrible in doing the self-introductions. But I noticed one meeting, there was a little note on my desk on the table, and I picked it up and I read it and it said, "Great introduction." And I'm thinking, who's this? And I would get some of the easier jobs. I wasn't going to try anything hard. I did the vote counting. And after doing the vote counting, where I had a lot of trouble just reading it off of the piece of paper, the duties, she said, "That was an excellent, vote counting duties today. You really counted them really well." Okay, because I was really getting to the point where coming to the meetings, like now it's fun, but these were in the days where it wasn't fun. I dreaded coming to the meetings. It was like going to the dentist. I knew I needed to do it, but it was painful. Even after doing the timer, she gave me I got a message. That was the most interesting approach to describing the duties of the timer I've ever heard. I go, oh my gosh, what is this person seeing? My first table topics were so bad. All I remember from my first table topics was a few guttural sounds and maybe 1 or 2 words. It was horrible. It was typically the staring at the green light waiting for it type of approach. And she said, "You were so expressive." As the weeks went on, though, I finally did discover the joy of Toastmasters. And what I finally discovered was, when somebody else was speaking and having a little bit of a tough time, I noticed that Joy Carter had written something on a piece of paper and put it on that person's desk. And when I started kind of paying more attention to meetings, I noticed that she was doing this all the time. And she kept doing it as I was coming to meetings, because it was really hard for me to come to meetings. But when I get these little affirmations, I was thinking, oh wow, maybe it's not as bad as I think it is, because I felt horrible after every meeting. Basically, and it was hard. And I don't know if any of you, the newer members, have ever felt that, but it was really hard to come to meetings and put yourself out. As I then discovered that it was Joy Carter bringing the joy, it still I finally thanked her, because it had been probably 2 months where I didn't know who was putting these strange messages on my desk. And I got better. I did my icebreaker, which was reasonable, and she actually helped me, provided input to me when I became president. Where she was really, really positive in the beginning, it seemed like I must have gotten worse, because if I didn't do something well as president, she gave it to me. Now, it's really important I think that the lesson here is, and I've tried to do this, but it's hard for me because I'm not an expressive person, but you never know where that positive message is going to come from. Saying something positive, I can't write well enough for anyone to read, but that positive, little affirmation after somebody does a speech, you never know where it's going to come from. That, the one person that says it to you, it's going to resonate, and you're really going to feel like maybe I'm improving as much as I hope I am. Because it's, improvement is really tough. It's it takes a lot of small steps, and you don't always recognize them. But having somebody say that you're doing great works well, and it really helped me stay within Toastmasters. And the message I would have is, keep in mind that you can change someone's perception of how they did just by a nice either note, if you can write well, or affirmation in person. Thank you, Madam President.